Hey everyone!
Hello.
Oh, that's an echo. Go ahead and shut that off. Better? Why does it have sound? So annoying. Okay, we're just gonna leave that. Hi, so I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be watching the playback, which is totally fine. It is what it is. We chose this time.
And we already have a cat.
We already have a cat interrupting us. We chose this time because Olivia works all the time.
I do.
I was pale for a second there. Olivia works all the time. We live on the West Coast, so it's exactly lunchtime o'clock here right now. And we just wanted to put it in the best lighting at the best time of the day and make it available for people to watch on playback. So when you're popping in, you're going to have to accept mic, audio, whatever, and it's totally fine if you hide yourself. You could be like wearing a paper bag on your head. We don't mind. It doesn't change what we're doing here. It doesn't change any of that. So we're going to get started basically right away. The first portion of today in the Building Trust Masterclass is just going to be us talking about our story, about how trust worked for us, how we learned to build trust. Also, I told all of you in the various social media posts that Olivia is introverted and
very
awkward,
introverted.
and she's super uncomfortable right now, and she's doing a good job of pretending she's not, except that she's sitting really, really far away. And part of it is because her legs are long and she's like almost knees touching the table in front of us. And
So it looks like I'm very far away, but I'm only like an inch.
I've still got about 6
further.
inches of clearance.
Yeah.
So better. Also, I'm so pale that it looks like you're in the dark, but it's just the shine.
And I have a tan.
It's just the shine on my face.
Yeah.
Whatever. It is what it is. So welcome to the Building Trust Masterclass. If you're watching the replay and you have questions, please reach out to us and let us know. There's a cat. So we have 3. If the camera's shaking, it's because we're on their favorite window looking table. So a little about us. Do you want to go first?
You can go first.
Well, you know a little bit about me. So I moved to Vancouver Island in 2014, 2015, something like that, from northern Alberta / the central interior in BC. I had a complete and total mental breakdown. I had lost everything that I had been working towards. I had sold every single thing that I owned except for my clothes. And I came down here with a backpack and 3 suitcases, and that was it. I had some friends who were living here, and I stayed in a camper on their property for the first little while. I came here because I had no one really, and my trust was broken. I no longer trusted myself because everything I thought was the thing that I was going to do for the rest of my life imploded and blew up. I was part of a Christian organization that fired me basically for being mentally ill. And then shortly thereafter, I came out as bisexual and got even more, if possible, disconnected from everyone. So it was a big ordeal. Olivia and I met after about 2 years after that. What is today?
Yeah.
2-ish years, COVID time. What even is time? So we met about 2 years after that, and I was helping to lead drag bingo at the local cafe. And Olivia was the only person who I hadn't met and wasn't talking to me. And therefore, being the Leo that I am and the host that I am, I had to be like, hey, want to be friends? Also, queer culture moment, she was the only person who wasn't being gross to everyone else. No offense to everyone else who was there, but when we're at a drag event, we all tend to get a little more RuPaul and a little less Dolly Parton, and it's a bit awkward sometimes.
It is.
Yeah. So it took me 8.5 months from that day to convince Olivia to trust me enough to call our friendship what it was.
Yes.
But that's a minute later.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know, because we'll talk more about me if you follow me on Instagram. Olivia is like awful at social media. It's not her fault. It's not her fault.
No.
We can't all be good at all the things.
No.
So her story's not there. That's basically the moral of the story, is that Olivia's story isn't all over the internet like mine is. She isn't low-key famous. She hasn't been published. She doesn't have books. She doesn't have a podcast. She doesn't have 400 profiles. She hasn't been on Facebook since before Facebook was public to everyone to be on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I got Facebook in 2004. I'm that old. Anyway. So,
and I got it 4 years ago.
Yeah. I'm going to let Olivia tell you a bit about her story. I prepped her a little, so I'm going to prompt her when she has a brain fart and forgets what she wants to talk about. You were talking about what trust was like for you before and like coming out and all of that stuff. So I'm not going to tell you what to share, but you were talking about that, and that was really good.
I was, yeah.
Really good to talk about.
So my story is that I grew up on the West Coast in a very small village of about, well, right now it's probably like 200 people, but at the time it was about, 1,500 people. So, and it was a logger community, of course. So I'll just say that I knew I was gay by the time I was 11. But in a small town, you do not say anything like that. Like, I didn't even know anybody in Tasses that might have been gay or even looked gay.
No.
That's why I said might.
We're everywhere.
Yes, we are everywhere. Everywhere. Yes. So I did not come out. Well, I should say I moved to Campbell River when I was 14 with my mom because my dad stayed in Tasses to keep working. And even then in Campbell River, it's here on Vancouver Island, I should say, it's still on the island, that you still did not come out because I'm almost 40, halfway to, I guess, 45 almost now. No. Whatever.
She's in her 40s.
I'm in my 40s.
She's in her 40s.
Yeah, so when I was growing up, with no internet, you did not know anything about anybody anywhere else besides your own little community. Yes.
Did you guys even have TV? Like, did you have Peasant Vision?
We did, yeah. We had like 3 channels.
Yeah, you had like the standard free channels.
And
so
Saturday,
that you could get, like,
Saturday was hockey night in Canada every Saturday. My dad had control of the TV.
Classic.
And we had to go up to the TV and turn the channel.
Turn the knobs?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Had a TV like that, and it's like... Click.
Yep. It was.
Yeah, and then you like hit it and like move the things. Anyway.
Yeah, we had a big antenna in the backyard. Huge antenna.
So, what would you say your relationship with trusting yourself was like when you were that age? Like teenager, early 20s.
I did not trust myself at all. I was even more of an introvert. Like, I'm so much more. Like, even 5 years ago, would I think that this time I'd be talking on live at YouTube and Instagram? No, never. I'd be terrified.
Never mind that, but like your job, like her job, she does it like it's outside, and so she's not like interacting with people all the time, but she does interact with people every day. Like, she has to give them quotes for the service that she does.
And it's new people every day.
It's new people every time. And like she's been on the phone more than I've ever seen her be on the phone in our entire life and entire relationship because she has to be. And it's really an amazing growth to see. But like, would you ever said what you wanted when you were a kid?
No.
Like, did you have needs? Did you know that needs existed?
No, actually. because I was the third child. And
The surprise.
Yes,
child.
the prize child. I was always told that, oh yeah, you weren't planned, you were an accident, and yeah. So it
Sad
was,
face.
yeah. So you always have that vibe that you're less important.
And so, like,
than
if you
everybody
feel
else.
less important, then what does that make you think of, like, your ideas and stuff?
That they're not worth anything. And you always second guess yourself, or a third guess, or a fourth guess.
And this is something that the two of us had in common, but for different ways. So this is not a call out on our parents. I feel like both of our families did what they could with what they had.
And they were raised in a hard family.
Yeah, but they were both, like, both of our families were raised in such a way that, yeah, we're just not gonna, that's not what this whole thing is about. But it didn't foster trust.
No, it did not.
It didn't foster trust because you weren't allowed to have an opinion. You weren't allowed to do things.
Or I should say, I thought I wasn't allowed.
You weren't allowed to do things the way that, like, other people, like, different than how it's always been. And whenever you did, you would get, like, a look or a phrase, or completely ignored.
Like, why do you want to play with power tools when you're a kid?
I'm going to be reining you in. I'm going to be reining you in.
Yeah, I'm getting carried away.
This whole masterclass is about trust.
Yes.
So trust me to
Yes.
steer the direction of the conversation.
Okay.
So you're talking about coming out and how that was a moment for you this morning before we turned on the video, how that was a moment for you where you really trusted you and you trusted your reality and your truth and stuff more.
That's right. I did.
Than the fear, because fear is just the opposite of trust. That's what we were talking about this morning.
We were.
So what motivated you to be like, fear and trust yourself?
Oh, it was slow, just a slow of changing in myself. And I should say I didn't come out until I was like 34. So by that time, every day I felt like I was lying. At that point, I was lying to myself. I was lying not intentionally. Oh, I guess intentionally.
But yes and no. It
everybody
wasn't.
I met.
You weren't like waking up and going, "I'm gonna lie today."
Yeah,
it was protection. It was
protection.
learned behavior
To protect myself from any, and it's one of those things because I didn't have the internet. I didn't hear about all the fights, or it was just a subconscious thing. There was nobody else around attracted to the same sex or whatever, right? And it's just
and this will connect. We'll come back to why this matters in the next little bit that we're going to talk about. I've got like nice little talking points here on the side to help us stay on track. So when I met you, you had only been out
about maybe 4 years.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah.
Because I met you, technically I met her like just before or just after, just before your 40th birthday.
Yeah.
Because I had just met you and then she went to Cuba like a dick without any of us because we were her brand new friends and we weren't invited.
Yeah.
But
that's right.
And then I remember you having your 40th birthday and you being like, 40? You don't look like you're 40. Also had a little identity crisis with my heart because at the time I was 31. Yeah. 31. Almost 35 now. So we've been together for 4 years, by the way, everyone. So, and even that was a trust thing.
It was.
So we're going to skip some because it comes up later.
Long conversation.
The long story short is that we radically accepted ourselves simultaneously a little bit before we met, and like we were on the process of radical acceptance in our own lives of ourselves, how we felt, how we operated in the world, all of those kinds of things. And our friendship started based on that.
It did.
Where whatever you told me, I just believed to be true. And whatever I told you, you just believed to be true, to the point where we would fact check each other in the sense of if I said, hey, this is how I feel, and I could sense that Olivia wasn't quite trusting it or that she was a little like anxious about it, I'd be like, I just told you I'm fine. Like, are you upset?
Yeah.
And like, we were able to support each other in that. And we went through some pretty hard stuff as a friend group, like us and our close, like 5 friends right out of the gate when we first met. Like, we were volunteering for local LGBTQ associations, and there was a lot of drama llamas happening. And we all kind of had to just be honest, like super honest. We had to admit our fears to each other. There's things I've told Olivia that I've never told anyone else that I told her before we were dating. And some things within the first few weeks that we were dating. And then there's things that Olivia told me that she hadn't even really told herself that we've been working through. But it's because when you aren't allowed to have emotions and you aren't allowed to have opinions and you aren't allowed to have feelings and you aren't allowed to question the entire time you grow up, it's normal to have what's called a late adolescence, whether that's emotionally, professionally, relationally, whatever. And so we have both kind of gone through that together, where we learned, we did all the stuff that people in healthy upbringings do in their teenage and early 20s years, where they question their role in society, they question their learned values, and to see if they really fit with them. So Olivia and I are very different, and we grew up very differently, like catastrophically differently. But we're very similar because we have similar values. We believe in radical, non-judgmental acceptance. So what does that look like? When I'm in a bad mood, what does radical acceptance look like?
I just accept. Like, you're a bad mood, it's like, okay, she's in a bad mood.
Do you take it on? Like, is it your fault that I'm in a bad mood?
No, not at all.
Do you try to fix my bad mood?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. But sometimes it's just one of those things. You can't fix it.
What have you learned to ask instead of just giving solutions?
What do you need?
Exactly. So radical acceptance and radical honesty, Olivia will often ask me, do you need me to do anything right now? And sometimes the answer is yes. I don't know. I'm overwhelmed. And most often is like, no, I'm just like, I just need to feel it and then move on. And it's really helped the down spiral. So radical acceptance of myself for me has been like, stop comparing myself to these fake standards that don't exist. Like, I'm not allowed to have anger, and I'm not allowed to have stress, and I'm not allowed to be sad. And because all of these things.
Who said that?
Who said that? Whose tapes are you listening to? So this is where the radical honesty part comes in. So Olivia, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
Your biggest fear in our relationship is that I'm going to leave.
Yes. That's right.
Who proposed first?
You did. You did.
How long ago was that?
In the first year we were together on my birthday, basically.
Before we bought the house.
Yep.
Before we bought the house. Yeah. And I had a fever. It was freaking hilarious.
Yeah. And then I was sick too.
So what did I say at the time? Do you remember?
Yeah. When I am ready, I will be getting the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I gave her a ring, and then I said,
of course I panicked.
When you're ready, you can ask me. And at that point, Olivia's like, I'm never getting married. Marriage is stupid. I don't believe
it's
in
just
marriage.
a piece of paper.
Blah, blah,
it's
blah,
useless.
But what's the radical honesty part about I don't want to get married? Marriage is stupid. You worked through it. So what is the real thing behind that?
Because I didn't value myself. I didn't believe that anybody would want me permanently forever in their life.
And what was your only example of marriage?
My parents.
And were they happily married?
No.
No. So we're not going to air their dirty laundry on the internet. But that's where we need to take a minute and look at things, because most of the times we hold these beliefs and it's like way at the surface. So I have an entire whole program about that if you need to learn how to dig deep and figure that shit out, we can help you do that. So now when we're freaked out or insecure, we just name it to each other. And it helps me to be able to name it to myself on my own, because I've practiced it in our relationship, and neither one of us has gone anywhere. In fact, usually when we're really honest, like when I was really struggling with my mental health a couple of years ago, there were times where I was like, Olivia, I can't drive myself to work today. Like, I don't feel safe to drive myself to work today. And that was terrifying for me to say out loud.
Yeah.
And it was scary for her too. And she was like, okay. And she drove me to work.
I did.
Because it's like a very vulnerable place to be, and you're afraid of rejection. You're afraid you're overreacting.
And you went to work.
And I went to work.
You didn't feel safe at home.
Because I didn't feel safe being at home all day
Just
long.
want to put that out there.
It's like,
because people would say, oh, why are you going to work then?
Yeah. Why are you going to work if you're so depressed that, that's a whole other thing. I've since healed from that, but at the time it was pretty awful. And then there's other times where it's like, I really want to tell you this thing, this trauma, this thing in my past that affects my life all of the time. Like, I think about it every day. It's just part of who I am. It's part of where I am. And I need to tell you this, but I'm afraid of what's going to happen, because in the past I've told people who I thought were going to be around forever, and they left. And now that information is out there, and who knows about it. And so I told Olivia this deep thing that's like terrifying and awful, and she just hugged me, and I just cried. And then since I told her my big scariest thing, nothing has been off limits. I've never been afraid to tell her anything, and I never will be afraid to tell her anything. And being able to face that together has enabled me to face everything else. When's the time that you were really freaked out to say something to yourself, and I pulled it out of you? Every day, but
yeah, almost every day. I'm such an introvert. I actually forget sometimes to communicate, quite a few times. Constant.
Okay, so how do you become secure in being vulnerable and like having that trust with radical honesty? Because radical honesty looks different for you. Because I'm extroverted and I talk a lot, I process things externally, but you process things internally
for a long time.
So how does being even still, how does being honest with yourself now go? Like, does it still happen mostly in your head?
It does, but I don't go over and over and over it constantly. I maybe go like twice.
Okay, so you're not spinning it.
I'm not spinning.
So pretend we're in your head.
Can
you share with the potential other introverts how you would be honest with yourself about something? So say your coworker says or does something that makes you upset, irritated, annoyed, etc.
Yeah.
Do you ignore it?
I used to, from previous coworkers. Yeah. When I first started working at a shellfish hatchery, I would just ignore it.
Okay, what do you do now?
I confront it. No, in a good way.
Do you always confront it to them, or do you like sometimes? Because I know you come home and you tell me about it. You don't always have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
But like before, you would stop it before you even felt it. Like you would be like,
and it's, oh no, I'm not going to deal with no.
But it wasn't even just not going to deal with it. You were like, I don't matter.
It's aggravating me, but it's not. It doesn't look like it's aggravating anybody else. So
I'm too sensitive.
I'm too sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you say now?
Now I read their whole body language and I say, are you okay? What's going on? Or that kind of thing. Right. And sometimes they say, oh, I had a really bad sleep, or I stayed up way too late. And then I'll say, okay, well, this is what happened. You might not have noticed, but it's,
so you accept their answer, but then you're honest. You say, you're doing this,
even though
affected me.
Yes, it affected me, or it affected the job, and it can't.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
when I say something, because I have a big mouth.
Yes. I'll just say yes. Yes.
I
you do.
usually own it before Olivia confronts me. But
Yeah.
when I hurt you, do you feel safe to say that
Yes.
hurt?
Yes, I do. I
How
think
is
so.
that different?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. See, so like radical honesty and radical acceptance isn't expecting someone else to always be perfect.
No.
The people in your life are going to be humans.
It's not true. There's no such thing as perfect.
Our partners, our coworkers, our clients,
Mhm.
our children, our parents, they're all human beings, okay? Radical honesty starts with me and then moves outward in my sphere of influence. And some people never need to know. And some people do need to know. So if my spouse says something that is hurtful for me, and I've reacted in both ways in the recent past, like in the last 6 months. So sometimes Olivia will not do something. It's not so much that she does or says things. It's that she forgets or she gets so focused on the task that's more exciting that she doesn't do something. Or like she's so used to living on her own and taking care of her own needs and nobody giving a shit that she forgets to ask me to.
Yeah.
So like sometimes Olivia will make a meal or a drink or whatever, and I'll be like, "Oh, give me one too," and like not make a big deal about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had this conversation, so I feel safe sharing it. And then other times I'll react like a fucking child and be like, "You know, it really makes me feel like you don't fucking care about me when you never think to do things for me." Blah 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 blah. Okay, so one of those is out of an attitude of acceptance, and one of them isn't.
Yes. Can you guess which one?
Exactly. So people aren't going to treat me the way I treat them. That is one of the biggest lies that we've ever been taught.
Yeah.
Do I think that I should treat people the way I want to be treated? Only if I'm operating out of a place of radical acceptance, radical honesty, and like building trust. Mm-hmm. So how do I undermine my trust with myself? First and foremost is not doing what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it.
And I'll put my hand up that I'm very bad for that.
And so,
yep.
Being that I'm more consistent in doing what I say I'm going to do because I've worked on it, not because I'm better than anyone. It's because I put the priority in learning how to do it.
Yeah.
Not failing to do what I say I'm going to do. So don't skip ahead. But how do you feel when you don't do what you say you're going to do and someone asks you about it?
Upset with myself.
Expand.
And I question, like, why did I not do it? What's holding me back from doing it, even though I said, and I put it on myself? Nobody else put it on me.
What kind of words do you use to yourself? What kind of names do you call yourself when you don't show up?
Lousy, or, oh God, not trustworthy to myself.
When you avoid things because
I'm a shitty person.
Exactly. So, do you tell people who are late in your life that they're shitty people?
No, I do not. Nope.
If someone says they're going to do something and they haven't done it yet, what's your response? I know you have more than one. But your go-to response isn't anger.
No, it's like, oh, okay, we'll get to it later. Or, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Not going to say whether that's a good or bad response.
Yes. Depending on what it is, it might be a good response and or a bad one. Depending.
So would you say that your self-talk, the things you say to yourself about yourself in your head that you play over and over and over again, undermine your trust in yourself?
Yes.
So do they make you feel like you're unkind?
Yes.
Do they make you feel like you're unintelligent?
Yes.
Do they make you feel like you're unreliable?
Yes.
Olivia is one of the kindest, smartest, most reliable people I've ever met in my entire life. Before we started dating, she gave me hundreds of dollars to cover my rent when we barely knew each other because my roommate left me in a lurch. but she thinks she's unreliable. She's been the
Or I drive you
caretaker.
to work.
She's been the caretaker role in her whole life forever since she was old enough to take care of others, even when maybe she shouldn't have been.
Mhm.
People have let her down her entire life, and she thinks that she's the problem. Okay? This is how we undermine our trust with ourselves.
Mhm.
How do we undermine trust with others? The biggest thing is not accepting them for who they are,
Yep.
expecting them to be someone different than they are,
Mhm.
and a lack of communication.
Yep.
So communication with us, we've
Mhm.
learned very quickly that we each have tics
We do.
about how we communicate and how we interact. So Olivia says yep a lot, and I didn't realize it until I spent time with her family. They all do it, but they don't.
They do?
Yeah, you guys all, you're all like yep, anyways, yep, anyways, so, and yep. It's kind of like when someone's talking and another person's going like this. They're not necessarily hearing what you're saying. They're just like either thinking about what they're going to say next, thinking about what you just said, or waiting for you to shut up. And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's like Olivia's got this thing in her head, and I've learned that I have to say, hey, can I talk to you about something right now? Are you able to listen to me right now? Because when I don't, when I get too excited and I just want to share what's in my brain this very minute as a creative person, she won't hear me. And it's...
And I have great hearing. I have perfect hearing.
We had her hearing tested.
And they said it was very, very good for my age. Supposedly I have the hearing of like a 19-year-old.
And
Before
so, like,
they put earbuds in their ear all the time. Just saying.
the way that
30 years ago.
the way that I undermine trust in with others, okay, is similar to the way that I undermine trust with myself, except it's like the opposite side. So for me, when I undermine trust with myself, it's I'm not doing what I say I'm going to do. When I undermine trust with other people, micromanaging, checking in with them all the time. When Olivia and I first moved here, I was peak anxiety, peak depression. There was some weird shit happening in our neighborhood, and I was texting her all the time. And it was like, it was awful.
Well, we did have a squatter living in the backyard.
But that's besides the point. It was awful. So I would keep I undermined trust with her by always checking in and always telling her the next thing that was on the schedule and double checking, making lists. I was scheduling her life. I was scheduling my life. I was still in school at the time and working, and she was working. And I was scheduling everything and keeping track of everything and keeping track of bills and all of the things. So in some circumstances that looks like it's helpful, but it's not, because I wasn't allowing my partner to take responsibility for anything, which means I didn't actually trust her to show up. I didn't actually trust her. I didn't even allow her the chance of disappointing me. I didn't even allow her the chance to discover what our relationship should look like, what load we should carry. And it was the source of so many conflicts. I won't say arguments, because we're not really like that.
No, we're not.
We just talk like we are right now. Yeah. And I'll ask Olivia a question, and she'll be like, "Oh, you're right." And I'll be like, "No, tell me what you're actually thinking, because I could give a shit if I was right. I want to know what's going on in her head." And she's an introvert.
Yeah.
So the way that we cultivated trust in that situation was I had to trust that no matter what the outcome, no matter what my expectations were, I had to trust that Olivia, who had been living on her own her entire adult life, could figure out how to be an adult.
I guess technically living on my own.
Well, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So, and then that expanded to other relationships, right? So at work, I stopped making sure people were coming on to work on time. I stopped making excuses for other people. And you know what happened? They got fired because I stopped covering for them. But what else happened was I had a lot more energy. I was a little less stressful. There was so much. So learning not to juggle everything all of the time. It's not my job to control everything. I can't. I only have 2 hands. How am I supposed to take care of everything?
You can't.
So how did Olivia undermine trust with others? When were you the most suspicious of other people?
Oh. When they show emotion, like for me, if somebody hugs me or I have a hard time believing it. Any like emotion, like
so your own like basically low self-esteem, low self-worth, low self-value, and the old habits of hiding.
And the thing is, I think 85% of the time I was right to question them. It's like their tone of voice, their body language, and it would be like, okay,
but
I don't believe them.
On the flip side, because of operating out of the place of suspicion, how many times did you not trust me?
Quite a few times.
Quite a few times.
Yeah.
Like, even still, this is something we're still working through. It's like you being allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah.
Because you've never been allowed to have an opinion.
And there's
your whole life.
That's right. Four times in the last 30 seconds. At least.
Don't worry about it. So I'll ask Olivia what she wants or what she's doing.
And I will not have a clue.
Or
I don't think it's valuable enough.
Or you'll give me an answer and then 15 minutes later, you'll say something different. You'll be like, oh, actually, I want to do this. And I'm like, well, why did you lie? And she's like, I didn't lie. I'm like, well, did you know 15 minutes ago that you didn't want to do it? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lie.
Yeah.
So, like, ways we undermine trust with other people is we're not honest. Like, this all boils down to honesty and fear. All of it. So,
in my mind, it's like, oh, what does she want? What she wants is more important than what I want, even though it's not the truth.
At this point, there are simple ways that are so simple they feel silly to build trust with yourself. So if you don't already have a notebook out, I have several. I have this tiny one, and I have this one that Olivia got me, and I have one that my coach got me, okay? So take out your notebook if you have one. And then I want you to write down 5 things that you want to get done this week. 5 things. So what are 5 things that you want to get done this week?
The yard. Weed eat the yard. Clean it all up. And plant as much as possible.
Okay, so that's 3 things. What are 2 other things that aren't to do with the garden that you would like to get done this week? What about exercise? What about packing your lunch? What about doing your laundry?
Yes.
What about
doing laundry? Definitely exercising. I've been lax the last few days.
So I would like to record a podcast or 2. I would like to get stuff sorted out with my student loans, which has been an ordeal for a while. I'm going to create some freebie downloadable content and plan my lives for my live group and follow up with everyone in this masterclass. So here's the simple way that is so silly that it might be irritating. And you're probably going to be annoyed. But I want you to put a timestamp on when you're going to do each of those things. And then I want you to be honest and radically accept that you have follow through. That you are a person of your word and that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, because you lose the right to be angry at anyone who doesn't show the fuck up if you're not doing it in your own life. So if people being late annoys you, if people not doing things that you need annoys you, but you're not doing what you need, the real reason it pisses you off is because it's triggering your own avoidance. So I am going to record a podcast on Monday, which means that if something comes up and I'm not done by 8 p.m., I don't get to go to bed. I'm going to go into the office and shut the door and take the 20 minutes it takes to record a podcast. So, Olivia, what time of day are you going to work out, and how many days are you going to do it? So today you're going to work out at 2 o'clock, but what about next week? Like, this is for the next week.
For the next week, I'm going to get up at 5 in the morning and do what we
say we're going to do.
Yeah.
So you're gonna work out.
Yeah.
What do you need to accomplish the night before?
I need to pack my lunch, have my breakfast ready, coffee done.
So it takes some planning, right? What if you sleep in? Or what if you don't feel like it?
Still gonna do it.
You're still gonna do it. Yeah. Okay. So here's how you build trust with yourself. I don't feel like it. I didn't sleep well. I don't have the motivation. Okay. Did you say you were going to do it? Does it still need to be done? Are you the only one who can do it?
Yes.
Then you have to do it. That's how you build trust with yourself. If you say, I'm going to brush my teeth tonight, brush your teeth. So here's this is the low stakes version of this. So you have your 5 things that you're going to do this week. I want you to write down 5 things that you're going to do anyway today.
And then write it off.
Yeah, I'm going to eat dinner. Tick. I'm going to go to the bathroom and wash my hands. Tick. I'm going to watch Netflix. Tick. So I know this sounds ridiculous.
Only for an hour.
No judgment. No judgment at all. I know this sounds ridiculous, okay? But this is where it matters most that we show up, is with all of these little tiny things. So I've gone as far as having a giant whiteboard in the office, and when I start to see my follow through slide back into old patterns, because I'm a human being and I'm not going to be perfect all the time. When we get stressed, we fall back to our default wiring. So when I see myself start to fall back into old patterns, I schedule from the time I wake up until the time I go to bed. I write it out on the board, and it's not always full, but it's there. And then I'll write wake up at 5 a.m. and then breakfast and working out. And then I'll write have a shower, and then I'll write whatever. And then I can schedule rest, fun, and appointments in throughout the day. And if there's space, I can move things around if I need to move things around, but I make sure that I get everything done that has to be done on that day. And what I've done is the system has evolved to where I have different colors of pen, and all of the stuff that is in a certain color of marker has to be done on this day, the day that it's written on. And all of the stuff that is in a different color of marker is stuff that's like ongoing that needs to get done this week, but it's not essential. And then all of the stuff that's in the 3rd color, which I need to get a new 3rd color marker because the cat ate it and it's in the trash now. But all of the stuff that's in the 3rd color is like the stuff that has to happen all of the time, but it doesn't matter exactly what day it happens, just that it does. So all of the stuff that's in that color is like laundry. Cleaning the fish tank has to happen once a week or once every 2 weeks, but not on a specific day at a specific time. Client calls are in red. Working out, eating, resting, bedtime, that's all in red. I even go as far as writing hydrate, but that's usually in green because it moves around. I'm not always thirsty at the exact same time every day. How has having a regular schedule changed how you feel about yourself?
It has changed everything. And I mean everything.
Expand.
The change, we started doing this like, maybe a year ago?
Yeah, about 10 months ago.
About 10 months ago. And in the last 10 months, like before, I did not exercise. I thought my job gave me enough exercise. And I thought my body was healthy. Right? And because my blood work said I was healthy. Right?
How was your motivation to do anything outside of work before you had a regular schedule?
I had no motivation to do anything.
So what did your day look like? So you say you'd come home from work on a Friday and you had the weekend off. What would it look like?
Come home, maybe have a shower, crash on the couch, zone out until bedtime. And then in the morning, it would be 8, 9, maybe 10 o'clock before we got up because we stayed up until 11 or 12. And then it was maybe have breakfast and then crash on the couch watching TV because it's the weekend. I don't have to do anything on the weekend. I've earned it.
Right. And like rest is important. But vegetating on our ass for 47 hours isn't rest.
Yeah,
it's
and
avoidance.
then it's back to work.
It's avoidance. But then everything just keeps piling up. And then you're like, oh, I said I would do this weekend. But I watched 2 entire series of Netflix.
It rained a bit.
Yeah, it rained on Vancouver Island where she's lived her entire life. But that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is when we are inactive, when we are passive in our own life, it's impossible to build and cultivate trust with others because we don't even have it for ourselves.
No, we don't.
So you need to find something, one thing that you are going to do, and you're going to do it frequently, and you're going to show up. So for me, it started with fitness, but then it changed. Like I still do that. I still take care of my body, and because garbage in, garbage out. I felt like trash because I was eating trash. I was thinking like trash because I was consuming trash. I was watching shitty TV. I was listening to shitty music. The people in my life were just always whining and complaining about other people all of the time. They were starting drama. It was a disaster. Okay. So I took a look at my boundaries and it had none. So I fixed that first. And then the pandemic was really helpful with that.
It was.
Because it just removed.
It changed
It just
our
removed
life.
people from my life. So I didn't have to enforce those boundaries. But like, you have to find time to sit down with yourself and honestly look at why trust is what trust is for you.
Don't pick up your phone. Don't turn on the TV. Just sit there and think.
So when I first met you, if you can go back to that space to 5 years ago in your brain, if I had said the word trust to you 5 years ago, what would your response be?
I would have backed up and probably went to connected.
So like, what's the first word that comes to mind now when I say trust?
Love.
I'm like,
for you, yeah.
That's cute. So like,
because even now, I really have to work on it. I really have to know people for a while before I start opening up.
See, but that is radical acceptance and radical honesty. I can accept that Olivia needs to know people on a deep level to trust them, but you can trust yourself now to navigate situations.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're at someone like a client's house and you don't trust going in because you're the only worker there or whatever, and it's not a pandemic, you trust yourself enough to say no.
Yep.
Would 5 years ago you have done that, or would you have like called your boss or?
I would have called my boss.
Because
5 years ago, I was doing a totally different job, so it never even entered my head.
Doesn't matter. So now, when you're out of the grocery store, like when we first were dating, and we first moved in together, you used to check with me,
which was
all
almost
the time.
Instant. Almost instant, by the way.
That's not important. You used to check with me all the time about everything you spent your money on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's your money.
Yeah.
Or we'd be like looking at something in the store and Olivia would want it. And I'd be like, well, I don't want it. Do you want it? Because if you want it, you can get it, but I'm not going to use it. So don't make this decision because of me. And like that helped her to trust her own self because you're allowed to have wants. You're allowed to have needs. You're allowed to have desires. So simple ways to build trust with each other every day is to just believe each other to the point where I or she has to eat it. I have to suck a lemon. So if Olivia's like, hey, do you want this? And I'll be like, no. And then 20 minutes later, she'll be like having a coffee or an ice cream or whatever. And I'll be like, oh, I didn't want to be a bother, but I actually do want it. So now I'm going to go get up and feel like an idiot the whole time while I make it. When I could have already had the thing and felt loved and cared for, etc. Yep. So how do you build trust with yourself and each other every day? You have to work on it. It's not a passive thing. It's not, you can't willpower yourself into it. You can't think yourself into it. You have to actively plan and follow through. And I feel like people don't want to hear that.
No.
The number 2 thing. So we've done like radical honesty and acceptance. Those two go hand in hand, and they are our top held values in our house and in our life. If you don't radically accept me as an LGBTQ plus person, you can get the fuck out of my life. I don't care. Like, bye. And I have actively removed people from my life for how they've treated us and disrespected us, because that is a boundary. Then that brings me to the number 2 thing. You have to have boundaries, and you have to keep them. And you have to trust and accept that you know what you need and not worry about whether or not it's going to make other people uncomfortable. Because how are you going to help, serve, protect, love, care for, teach, whatever it is, the thing that's most important to you, the thing that's driving you, the reason you wanted to come on here and learn and talk and listen with us, is because you don't trust something. Okay? So you don't trust your ability to say no. You don't trust your ability to hold on to your boundaries. You maybe don't have proper boundaries. Do you get upset or weirded out or whatever when you find out that someone else has a shared Facebook profile or whatever? Does it bother you when other people do things that have nothing to do with you, that don't affect your life at all, but they're doing it, and therefore it bothers you because you care about all of that stuff? For example, Olivia and I use each other's phones. I check her email all the time because she's bad at checking her email.
Bad.
Okay? I open all the mail. And in other people's relationships, that's viewed as like controlling and abusive and manipulative and whatever. But you know what? I only open the bills. I only check Olivia's email because, like, she has bill stuff that comes to her emails, and she doesn't check her email regularly. And then, like, people are trying to get a hold of her, and she doesn't check it. So instead of being like, check your email, check your email, check your email, check your email, I just fucking check it. But I got permission first.
Yeah.
If she gets a text message, she'll be like, hey, can you read that for me? That messes with people. When we answer each other's phones and text messages and stuff, it messes with people because they don't have trust. No. And they feel, like,
who am I talking to?
I won't ever read her phone without permission. But I also know that she's not hiding anything from me. And if she did hide something from me, it would be for good reason. Right?
Yes.
So, like, these are, like, simple ways to build trust with others, is to have boundaries, but to talk about what those boundaries are. So, when we're trying to hide something from the other person, because it's like we hide things, people surprise things. Some things are okay to be private and personal. Like, Olivia doesn't read my journal, but none of them are locked or put away.
Yeah.
And, like,
it has never entered my head to do that.
Exactly. So, like, when we want to keep something private, I'll just be like, don't open this drawer for 6 months.
Like, oh, okay.
Or, there's going to be some parcels coming in the mail. Don't open them. And she's like, okay. She forgets to tell me not to look places though. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna not open that and just close the drawer because she just forgets or whatever. She's really bad at surprising. It's fine.
I know I am so bad.
So how do you build trust with a child?
Mm-hmm.
This is hard. This is a hard one. So I will preface this with I'm not a parent. I have been a child that did not have a trusting relationship, and I can speak as to how other adults in my life fostered trust. I can also speak to being a nanny with a family with 6 children and how I cultivated trust with them. So how do you cultivate trust with a child? When they're emotionally overreacting, you don't react at the same height. You try your level best to put it in your pocket and ask them a question or say, I see you have some big feelings. Do you want to talk about them? And if they say no, be like, okay. Do you want a snack? Do you want a drink of water? Do you want me to leave you alone? How can I help you? It all depends on their age, okay? My 8-year-old nephew was totally fine with like being alone in his feelings. His little brother was absolutely not and needed a hug. So I would always ask, do you need a hug right now? And he would say, yes, Auntie. And I would hug him and he would cry and then he would feel better. His brother, if I were to hug him, that would be a huge invasion of personal space. And then he wouldn't trust me. He wouldn't come to me. He wouldn't talk to me because physical touch wasn't his love language. So it didn't work for him. So with Olivia, when you were a kid,
yes,
how did you feel when someone invaded your space?
Very uncomfortable.
Regardless of your age? Yeah. How did you feel as a kid when people asked your opinion? It didn't happen a lot, but it did happen.
Yeah. I get such anxiety because I had no practice at having an opinion.
Because you weren't given choices.
No,
right?
I wasn't given choices.
So the way you set up trust with kids so that they can learn to trust themselves, but also so that they can learn how to model trust, is you have to ask their friggin' opinion and be okay with the outcome. We want to control every single minute of every single day, and we are not okay with not being in control. And that is a fear thing. That is an anxiety thing. When we have options in our head and we allow children to choose, and then we help them follow through on their choices, we enable them to build trust with themselves, with their own voice, with listening to what they like. We can ask them questions like, where do you feel in your body when someone says something that makes you sad? Does your heart hurt? Does your stomach hurt? Because they can learn when someone's talking and their belly feels weird, that's their inner voice telling them something's not right. 90% of the time when a child tells me their tummy hurts, they're actually sad, hurt, or angry. They're not actually sick. So that's one thing. Moving on to teenagers. How can we enable trust in a teenager's life? I've done so many years of youth work, probably when I was younger than I should. And Olivia has helped train some youth ages like 18 to 27 or whatever. So she knows that the number one way not to build trust is to do it for them.
That's right.
To wake them up for work, to bring a lunch when they don't bring a lunch, all of these things. It just enables problematic behavior where they don't have to follow through and then they feel like a shitty human being, which we talked about at the beginning, because you said when you don't show up and you don't follow through and you don't do what you say you're going to do, it makes you feel like a lousy human being. And like, no wonder we have so much stress and anxiety. So the best thing that you can do for a teenager is to make them enjoy or hate the consequences of their decisions. So this sucks. It sucks. It sucks to watch someone struggle. It sucks to watch someone have to deal with all that stuff. even as adults, you have to let adults be adults. You have to let them choose and decide and just support them for the outcome. That's where the radical acceptance and radical honesty part comes in. So when I ask Olivia if she wants me to make her dinner and she says no, and then it's 8 p.m. and she's eating shit for dinner, I literally tell her that sounds like a you problem.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, there's nothing to eat. I'm like, well, I asked you 3 hours ago if you wanted me to cook you dinner.
Yeah.
And you said no.
Mm-hmm.
So now here
Because
we are.
I didn't want to be in an inconvenience.
Exactly. And that's where the honesty comes
Mm-hmm.
from. So another simple way to build trust is to set them up for success by communicating clearly. It's unfair for me to expect Olivia to show up for things that I didn't clearly expect of her and say that I expected of her.
Yeah.
We learned by trial and error on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one time, I'll be like, hey, don't do this or do this. And then for the rest of my friggin' life until I stop her, she does it that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't. So instead of being like, which I used to do, I'm like, so hey, how come you're doing this every day now?
Yeah.
And she'll be like, oh, I remembered that you said this. And I'm like, well, thanks for remembering. Like, right? Acknowledge the thing. Yes, you were right. I did say that. Thank you. And then I say, that was just the once. And then we have a laugh instead of feeling like idiots. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I would do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like with money specifically and chores and stuff. So I was always cleaning and always doing things while I was working and going to school. And then I had a huge blow up.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like I got mad at Olivia in a sense, but I had a meltdown.
You did.
I was crying. I was flipping out. I was like, I feel like I'm doing everything all of the time. And at the time I was like mentally ill, like really badly. And I had to risk the trust in our relationship and jump into the fear, lean into the fear of rejection and say, hey, I'm falling apart. I can't hold this all together anymore. I can't do the dishes. I can't cook us dinner. I can't plan your lunch and my lunch and your life and my life and go to school and go to work and try to like pretend to be happy. And at the time I was volunteering for a bunch of stuff. And like, I was just busy all the time and I just kept on taking more and more and more and more and more. And I blew up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I just need you to fucking help me. And she was like, how? And I was like, I don't know. Because I was so done that I couldn't even like cognitively, whatever. And so after I de-escalated from that, having a good cry, we were able to talk it out. And now we've created this place where we can say, hey, do you have time to do this for me right now? Can you please do this right now? And we both do it to each other. Olivia's still pretty bad at it, but of course you are. Like nobody ever helped you your whole life. So of course you are. So that's the radical acceptance part. Nobody ever helped Olivia her whole life. So she doesn't know how to ask for help. So learning that she's not shutting me out. She just literally doesn't know how.
Because everybody was asking for my help.
Exactly. Or just expecting it.
Yeah.
So when she finally got with a person who has the same drive to help others and serve others, she kind of just let it all go. And it was fine for a time until it wasn't. So now when I see Olivia struggling, I'm like, hi, I'm right here. And I also have 2 hands because we're cheeky. That's just, it is what it is.
It is. And then it's like, oh yeah, can you help me?
and it's less accusatory than me being like, why don't you just ask me for help?
I'm standing right here.
Because one, I already know why she doesn't just ask me for help. So for me to be like, why aren't you just asking me for help? That's like, why are you so stupid that you don't even think to ask for help? And I know that those are her insecurities, and I know that that take place in her head. So the loving part of me doesn't ask that. The other thing, so like we're cheeky like that, where I'll be like, hey, I have 2 hands, I can help you. And she does like the same thing to me with other stuff. So like I'm really bad at like stopping whatever it is that I'm doing to take care of myself. I will get so just until I'm done the thing. So I've had to learn to be like, Olivia, can you bring me soup? While I'm just like writing a novel, literally, or whatever. So yeah, I've had to ask her that if she's probably thirsty, then I probably am thirsty too. And I'm never going to get mad at her for bringing me a water or a tea ever. I might not drink it, but I'm not going to get mad. So I hope that in watching the playback of this, you have some practical tools. I'm going to end early so that I can allow time for you guys to send us questions, because the fact that there's not a lot of people watching live got rid of about 20 minutes of question and answer period. And I really want to honor that. Like, you paid to be here. So if there's a specific situation that you need guidance in from the point of view of an extrovert or an introvert, like, Olivia does better when she has time to think about questions. So please, please, please email me and be like, this question is for Olivia. And she will 100% tell me, and then I'll type it out for her because she hates typing and wants it to die.
I'm a one-finger typer.
Like, not only is she a one-finger typer, but she's like, A. The amount of times.
That is true.
Okay, so here's the real reason why I use her phone. She's like, can you just do it? And then I make fun of her. So
much faster.
We covered a lot. I talk really fast. It's fine. I said 90 minutes for the sake of having space for you to talk. But most of you are watching later. I love you. No judgment. Like, actually no judgment. Like, there isn't any. So don't infer sarcasm. There's zero judgment on that. But yeah, so as I mentioned, there are a lot of things that we covered. I also have a lot of resources on my website that dive deeper into each of these things. If you would like to know more about those, send me a message. It won't be a sales call. We'll just talk about it, and you can find out more information. Questions about trust, questions about boundaries, questions about how I learned about boundaries, go to my YouTube channel, because if you're not in my Facebook group and you're not on Facebook, we just did a 5-day series on boundaries, which is why I didn't cover them very much in this teaching. Is there anything that you want to talk about before we go?
No, I think I'm good.
Now, is that an introverted, I've been trying to talk for an hour and I hate this thing good? Or is that
No, I'm actually surprised at how comfortable I actually am.
It helps that you can't see anyone.
That's right.
It makes a huge difference.
It does.
And then I'm the one asking you the questions,
yes,
and not other people.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it for us today. Thank you so much for popping in. Yeah, let me know how it goes. Let me know how we can support you. Olivia doesn't work for me, but she does. So, you know what I mean? She doesn't work for me.
No.
But I joked with her when we were doing the photo shoot. I was like, well, now I'm like a class D celebrity, and you're just going to have to get used to being on the internet, because I'm going to use your face for all my marketing. And people are going to want to know who you are. And they're going to want to talk about you and to you and with you and for you and all of these things. So we are here for you.
Expanding my horizons.
Let us know what resonated, what you want to know more about, what you're like, ew. And then if something triggered you, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because triggers are usually just unhealed traumas.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to go. It looks like it's about to pour rain, and we need to put some beets in the ground. And I don't mean like beets. We've got like little beet seedlings. We need to put them in the ground.
Bye. Bye.